All right. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Save Our Sisters Unplugged, where we share stories to remind you that you are never alone in this journey of life. I'm your host, Noreen Foy, and today's episode is one that so many people will resonate with. We are talking about something that often happens behind closed doors: narcissistic abuse and the deep emotional, mental, and spiritual impact it can have on a person's life. But today's conversation isn't just about surviving those experiences, it's about healing, transformation, and learning how to thrive again. My guest today is the lovely Miss Deanna Scaldaferri, the founder of Healing Hands by Deanna LLC. She is a licensed massage and bodywork therapist, a Usu Holy Fire 3 Reiki master. Okay. She's also an intuitive life coach and public speaker who dedicates her life to helping people heal their mind, body, and spirit. Deanna is also the facilitator of a narcissistic abuse recovery support group in Charlotte, where she has spent the past 4 years helping survivors learn, grow, and rebuild their lives in community with others who understand their journey. And what makes her work even more powerful is that her mission was born from her own personal experiences with grief, trauma, and narcissistic abuse and divorce. So instead of allowing those experiences to define her, Deanna has transformed her pain into purpose and now helps others release trauma, reconnect with themselves, and rediscover their inner light. It is my pleasure to welcome Mrs. Deanna Scaldaferri.
Thank you, Noreen. That was a beautiful introduction. I'm so thrilled and honored to be here.
I am so glad to have you here because a lot of people don't know a whole lot about what being a narcissist. There's a lot of people that use the word, but they don't really know all the deep inner workings of what that means. So I am so glad that you're here. First, before you get into everything, can you just give us like a little definition of what is a narcissist?
Sure, absolutely. I believe that the word narcissist is thrown around on social media all over the place. And I agree with you that not everyone actually truly understands what a true narcissist is. Because there is a difference between just, maybe being a little, conceited type of thing versus the actual behaviors of a narcissist. So some red flags would be, a lack of empathy when
Mm.
someone is unable, excuse me, to put themselves in someone else's shoes. Lack of remorse when they do things that aren't very nice. There's zero remorse for doing that. What else? There's a lot of control and lack of accountability for their actions. It's kind of like do as I say, not as I do type of thing. The rules don't apply to them. Narcissist is based on control and trying to control someone else, trying to control someone else's language, behaviors. There's a lot of manipulation, and a lot of these things are very subtle and they're very under the surface. So on the superficial level, most people might not even recognize those signs, and that's why it is very important to understand some of the red flags that are associated with a narcissist. But yeah, a narcissist typically has, and there's different forms and different kinds and categories. But typically, a narcissist has a very inflated sense of their own ego. They, again, you can look at it on a lower level, like, oh, someone's just, proud of themselves. No, that's very different than someone who believes they are truly better than everyone else around them, and they believe that they're superior, and that comes across in a lot of the language and behavior when dealing with someone like that.
Now, that was a very thorough explanation, and I'm
Yeah.
sure all the folks that are listening probably has maybe one or two people in their life that they can
Yeah.
say share some of those characteristics.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or maybe
And
they didn't even know that what they're displaying was narcissistic behavior.
and that's the thing. And I speak to this all the time, Noreen, and because I believe the biggest, most important thing that you can do is to really kind of observe when you either meet someone new or take inventory of the people in your life already and observe their language, their patterns of behavior. Because I speak to this all the time. We're all individuals and we're all made differently. So you can have several narcissists in your life, but they might, it's packaged differently, if that makes sense. However, what you can observe is really those patterns of behavior, because amongst all narcissists, I mean, there are books and videos all about these things, like the psychology behind it. It's those patterns that I speak to, in recognizing whether someone is a narcissist or not. And also, just to be clear, I speak to this all the time, that a person to be clinically diagnosed as a narcissist, obviously they have to, go to therapy and to be diagnosed on this scale. But the problem is in this situation is that most narcissists aren't going to therapy because they lack that introspective piece. They lack that self-reflection. So basically a lot of narcissists go undetected type of thing. So you have to do a lot of piecing together yourself or diagnose them through your own therapist or whatever the case is. So it makes it a little bit more complicated.
Right, because they're not getting diagnosed because they don't think anything's wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. When
So
you're
can you,
perfect, you don't need to change anything, right?
well,
So,
because it's everyone else, it's
right.
not them.
Everyone else is the problem, the blame game, always blaming someone else, always victimizing themselves, right? When anything goes wrong in their life, it's not because of them, because they're perfect. So it has to be someone else or something else or another situation. Those are telltale signs when someone's constantly victimizing themselves.
Yeah, it's it's such a hard thing to really get through,
Yes.
when you're the one that's dealing with this type of person.
And that's so true, Noreen, because a lot of times we all have blind spots in our life, right? But when you're in a relationship, it could be a romantic relationship or it could be a friendship or, it could be a narcissist can be anyone in your life. It can be a boss, a coworker, a coach, a teacher, a friend, a romantic, intimate relationship. But in those situations, a lot of times we are blinded because we want to believe in the good in people, number one, right? And we also, are often duped or fooled because the person comes off, right? The whole love bombing at the beginning of any relationship, they're trying to win you over, so you're swept away by that this person's a really nice person, they're great, and you're blind to of what's going on in the background. And a lot of times that's why it takes time. Over time, subtly you start to see some of those signs. You're like, well, wait a minute, I didn't see this at the beginning. Well, because at the beginning it was more of a show. It was more of a mask to try to reel you in.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense, Deanna. It really
Yeah.
does. And you explained that so perfectly,
Oh,
so
thank you.
perfectly. So
Thank
can you
you.
share a little about your personal journey and what led you to do the healing work that you're doing today?
Yes, absolutely. Try to give a abridged version. So I've been a massage therapist for over 10 years now, and it was a second career for me. I went to school and started out in the business world, but I realized at some point like that it was fine, but it wasn't really true to who I am. I never felt like completely satisfied that this is what I'm here for. I believe everyone is here for a reason, and we're meant to share our unique skills and strengths with the world. So I went to massage school, became a massage therapist, and from that point, it was very clear. It brought me evolved into the energy world of energy healing, and Reiki is one form of energy healing, but there are other kinds, and cranial sacral and polarity therapy. But it opened up my world to that, and that's when I recognized that my whole life I've been very, hypersensitive to a lot of things, emotions and feelings, and it was put down by many people around me in a very negative nature, like, oh, Deanna, you're too sensitive, you cry all the time, you this, that, whatever. So growing up, I always thought that was a bad thing. It was something I was supposed to hide about myself. But throughout my journey, it took me, time and years to get there. I realized that actually my empathy and my hypersensitivity is a superpower for me to be able to help other people, to be able to be compassionate and put myself in their shoes and help them. So from massage, it evolved into Reiki energy healing and then into coaching. And from my personal world, after leaving a 20-year narcissistic abusive relationship, that's where I then started the support group, because I felt that I wished there was a group like that when I needed it and there
Mhm.
wasn't. So I wanted to be able to help other people in those situations. Came from a very, very deep place in my heart from my own personal experience. And at that point, that led me into more coaching. uh, and then from that point, life is so funny. It's such an evolution. I'm sure you can speak the same of your
Yes.
professional world and personal world. And for me, it was almost like they blended together. The things that were happening in my personal world then led me to do things in my professional career. And at that point, I started doing speaking, which is where I am now, and being, guests on wonderful podcasts like yourself, and also just speaking in forums to raise awareness. That is my goal, to raise awareness for narcissistic abuse, especially for the younger generation who have more of their lives to lead, but also to help those recovering from these kinds of relationships. And like you said, find their light again, right? We all have a light
Yes.
that we're meant to shine in this world. I truly, truly believe that. And when you're in a very controlling, toxic, abusive relationship, you don't get to shine that light. It's covered. You don't trust yourself. You don't have the self-esteem to be able to do the things that you're meant to do. So I feel like through my personal journey in the narcissistic relationships that I've had, and the experience and wisdom that I have gained through those, a lot of suffering, but I agree with what you said at the beginning. I've turned pain into power, and I choose to use the suffering that I have been through, and my children, to use that to help other people in their lives. So at this point of the game, I'm really just happy that the tools that I use are massage and coaching and Reiki energy healing, and speaking. Those are the tools. But overall, my passion and my goal and intention is to help people in any way that I can. And
I
not
love it.
only, yes, I mean, for sure in these kinds of relationships, but just in general, a lot of people are out there needing healing, needing help.
Yes. Yes. Yes, 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 and yes.
Yes to all of it.
There's a yes, yes to all of it, because the mental health in this country is astounding, and the resources that we have for it is not, is not where it needs to be.
Fair.
But encouraging people to seek the help is really where we really need to be focusing on, is letting them know it is okay to ask for help, because your mental health is so important, not for just
Yes,
yourself, but for the people that you love, the people you interact with on a daily basis. So let's get a
absolutely.
little bit deep. We're gonna
Okay,
get deep. We're gonna get unplugged.
I'm ready.
I I want to know, when did you first realize that you were experiencing narcissistic abuse?
Okay. Um, I don't think it was like a pinnacle moment, like a light bulb
Mhm.
moment. I believe it was over many years. So, like I said, I've been involved in quite a few narcissistic relationships, some more intense than others. But overall, what I felt and speak to is the feeling of it. So, in the sense that for many, many years, when I was in a 20-year relationship, and even I had several bosses that where I worked there, just like things didn't feel right, if that makes sense. It was like, something would happen, something was said, an argument would break out, something, and it never felt like this is normal per se, right? But
Mhm.
I couldn't put my finger on why. I didn't understand, right? And at some point of the game, I just realized, well, maybe this is what everybody deals with, right? You don't know, you justify it in your head. So let's say an argument would ensue and I felt very unvalidated, or I felt like dismissed or unvalued. um, I would be upset. I would have my feelings, but I would just kind of chalk it off to, well, I guess that's how everybody is in their relationship, that kind of a thing. So it
Yes.
really, it took years, honestly. And, it's something that I do look back on and think, gosh, I wish I say it a lot now. Like, I wish I knew then what I know now. But you can't really play that game in life, right? It's just, I know now. And so when you know better, you do better. So I do believe that there was a pinnacle point, like a phase in that relationship. It wasn't perhaps a moment, but it was a point where I recognized, this is really not okay. If you look around, we try not to compare ourselves to other people or other relationships. But when I looked around often, I was like, I don't see other people fighting like this. I don't see other people
Right.
degrading each other like this. Like, I don't think this is normal. I don't think this is okay. But every time I had that thought, I was then fed the information like, oh no, everybody's like this. It's okay. So then I would swallow it and keep going. But I think enough of those situations happened where I realized this is not okay. And then the last piece of that I can say is that I did seek help. I started going to for psychotherapy after the loss of my parents. So I was dealing with immeasurable grief after I lost both my parents pretty traumatically back in 2017. And really, that I guess that would be the catapult, because I started going to therapy for the grief that I was feeling and experiencing. And in that space was where I was uncovering there was a lot of dysfunction in the relationships around me. So
Mhm.
it was connected for sure. And that's why I started to piece together like the psychology of it. And that took, probably about a year plus for me to put all those pieces together. And I speak to this a lot about with mental health, in that what I was learning through therapy was giving me the words of what I was experiencing. So I knew all along certain things didn't feel right. And that's what I speak
Right.
about, the feeling of like your intuition, like this doesn't seem okay. But now I was able to like put the labels on it and the words with what I was experiencing. And that helped me. You think about if you're putting a puzzle together, I put in these pieces of the puzzle. And then at some point now I can see the whole picture. And it made complete sense. It actually, it made sense of my life.
Mhm.
And that's what I speak to a lot about. um, Understanding awareness is the biggest piece of that. You can stay in a
Yeah.
relationship and that was me for many years, not know that it wasn't healthy until I was able to have that knowledge and awareness. Nothing would change until I got that piece.
Well, one of the things that I always say, and I agree with everything that you said. One of the things that I've always said is that the boomer generation, excuse me, the boomer generation didn't really set up our generation for being independent women. They were the generation of endure,
Yes.
and they made us feel like we could not really get out of that stuff.
Or
They
speak
made it
up.
seem like that's something that it's like a rite of passage. You stay in your
Yes.
relationships, whether it
Yes.
be your marriage, your partnership, whatever you're going through, you stay in it because that's really
Yes.
what women do,
Yes. You
you
are a
know.
thousand percent right. A
And
thousand
that's
percent.
that's really what we're trying to dismantle now. And this is why these conversations are very important to have, especially now in March, it's Women's History Month.
Yes.
It's really good to have these types of conversations to let women know that, listen, these things are not healthy. We're
Yes.
not designed to be talked down to. We're not designed to be, undermined,
Mm-hmm.
treated poorly,
Yes.
shrink ourselves. That's not who we are. We are
Right.
born to shine, baby. And that's what we
Yes.
want to do. And this is what we want to teach to the next generation,
Exactly.
because I'm Gen X. So we
Yes.
we want to make sure that the millennials and the Gen Zs, they know their place. They know you have a seat at the table. Bring the
Yes.
table with you. But you don't have to endure these relationships because that's not what they're designed to do.
Exactly.
If
And
your
it's
relationship doesn't give you peace, then you don't need to be in it, you
yes.
know. And you mentioned a couple of things that you had been going through. So can you, in your relationships, can you pinpoint a little bit more of some of the things that you were experiencing, like some of those hardest moments during that transition, before you left? So the things that you were experiencing, and then during your transition, from leaving the relationship to rebuilding your life.
What were some of the experiences?
Yeah, what were some of the experiences that you had and then that led you to your journey of, you know what, I'm done with this.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave this thing where it is because it's
Yes.
not for me. And then how
Yes.
did you rebuild your life after that?
Those are great questions. I'm just like pausing for a second because I could go in many directions. First off, I just want to speak to what you said, and I absolutely agree with you about the generational piece of that. I speak a lot about generational trauma and generational healing, and not only speak to it, I help people, in those journeys, because I'm also Gen X, and I believe that we learn what we learn by our parents, right, in our upbringing, and we think that whatever we've learned is normal. And I love the word that you use about endure. And you're right. It was just like you just, keep your mouth quiet and
Yep.
just keep going. Right.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Right. Exactly. And so now what I love about the next generations, right, our children and grandchildren, they're much more aware. They are much more aware about mental health and, again, what's healthy and what's not. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because it's important to note that exactly that. You don't have to stay in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a marriage, or a work relationship, if it is not healthy and if it hurts you. And so I'll speak to that piece about the hurting. I think at some point, people don't leave a relationship until the pain is unbearable. Okay, they'll
Yeah.
stay, they'll justify in their mind, and that was me. Like, I don't want to, break up a family. I don't want to, actually acknowledge that this is real. So I can suck it up, right? And I'll just take the brunt of it, and it'll be okay. But it's actually not, because now I wear my massage therapist hat, and from the science side of what the physical symptoms of what happens when you stay in a toxic relationship are undeniable. So I'll speak for myself personally. In that transition of deciding to leave and want to rebuild my life in a healthy way, I've never in my life experienced the physical symptoms that I did during that completely stressful time. Um, it was I was had like a racing heart all the time. I was completely on edge, and the anxiety, I have never felt anxiety like that in my life before. I felt like I kept saying I felt like suffocated, like there was like a concrete boulder literally weighing on my heart, is how I described it. I My blood pressure was up. I went for an annual physical, and all of my numbers and my blood work, everything was completely off the charts. And I knew exactly why, because I've never felt stress like that in my life in trying to make the decisions of what I was about to do next. So I speak to that piece a lot. I'm a huge mind, body, spirit believer. It's all connected. So if you're experiencing mental and emotional abuse, right, on again, over time, repeatedly, it will at some point take effect on your physical body. And vice versa is true. If you're experiencing physical pain, whether you have chronic pain, you were in an accident, then that will, play on your mental and your emotional state. So it's all connected. So for me, once I realized, like, I honestly, I mean, Noreen, I'll be 1,000% transparent. I knew if I stayed, it would take me in some way physically, because
Mm.
I knew that, whether I would get some sort of autoimmune or cancer or something, like that's what I felt in my heart. So
Right.
I couldn't stay. And it was such a feeling very deep inside of me that it's not about me trying to stay to please everybody else. If I don't leave, this is going to take me too soon and prematurely.
Right.
So, so I think for me, that was a pinnacle realization. And at that point, recognizing, okay, I talk about many times there's really like three phases in this world. If recognizing you're in a narcissistic relationship that isn't healthy for you, right? That's number one, is the awareness of it.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Number two is then deciding, well, are you going to stay or are you going to leave? And that is a choice. That is an absolute choice. And I don't judge anybody whether they stay or they go, but it is your choice. If you stay, there are consequences. If you go, there are consequences. Okay. So you make the decision. And then if you do decide to leave, right, which in my case I did, there is the recovery and the healing, which takes probably just as long as it took to get to that point. You're not only just healing your heart, you are literally healing your spirit. You are broken beyond belief, but on the inside. And people can't see that and understand it. And I used to, say, like, if anyone looked at me, they wouldn't know the brokenness that I felt inside,
Right.
because with verbal, emotional, psychological abuse, you don't see those marks on the outside. With physical abuse, of course you do, sadly. And sometimes that is involved in narcissistic abuse. Also, under there could be financial abuse, sexual abuse. There's many layers of narcissistic abuse. But a lot of
Absolutely.
times that healing is on the inside. So from that point, honestly, speaking to the generational piece, Noreen, and this is something that I can't describe. It was just something so soul deep inside of me. I knew that my recovery and healing was so much bigger than just me. It was about my children, my family, the generation going forward. I can't even describe or understand at the time how I knew this, but I knew that I needed to do what I was about to do because it was bigger than me. I deserve a happy and healthy life. My children deserve a happy and healthy life. My future grandchildren deserve a happy and healthy life. And if you don't break those patterns, you will just consistently see that same generational trauma continuing over and over again. So I feel very proud of the work that I have done for on myself and my own healing in finding my light again, and also in helping my children do the same, because I again believe that we're meant to shine our light, and we went from surviving to thriving, and it's taken years, and it was not easy. I will never be untruthful about that. It was absolutely hard, which is why most people will say, well, I'll stay in the misery because it's familiar, right? I know what this is
Exactly.
like. And I see this all the time in the support group and with clients. Well, it's like you're weighing out. Do I stay in the misery, which I know is not healthy, or do I leave? And there's going to be an aftermath and a lot of, work in getting to that other side. But I believe my own personal journey, it's been worth it, because even through the suffering, we've come out the other side just rediscovering ourselves, rediscovering our truth of who we are, and authentically being that person. And that's something that I'm so very proud of. And that is a silver lining. I speak to that a lot, and then I'll stop. And I know you've got more questions, but because I could go on, Noreen.
Well, it just speaks to your passion about it, and
It
I love how you really know yourself. You know exactly what you went through. You know exactly how well, you may not in the moment knew exactly how you were going to get out of it, but you made the
Yes,
conscious decision to get the heck out of Dodge,
yes,
because now you're thinking not only of yourself, you're thinking about, well, this is the example that I'm setting for my female
yes,
children. This is the example that I'm setting for my male children.
yes,
This is what I want my future generations of grandchildren to experience, but it all starts with me. And the
yes,
power of you is really what you're working with right now. You're really powering this engine because you're breaking that cycle and you're starting afresh, from
yes,
surviving to thriving, and
yes,
you want to stay on that thrive path. Now,
yes,
most of your work focuses on healing the mind, body, and spirit.
yes.
So tell me, why is it so important to address all three of them when recovering from drama? Excuse me, from trauma, which could be
Well,
drama.
there's drama included in
There's
the
drama in
trauma.
the
That is
trauma.
that is that is for sure. And I love that question. And actually, I speak to four components of that make up ourselves. And I use the analogy. I'm very visual, Noreen, and I like to give visuals because it sometimes helps people. So I always try to say that imagine you have a stool or a chair. It has four legs, right? And those are what make us up. It's our physical body, our emotional body, mental body, and spiritual, right? So those are the four components. And we need to nurture and take care of all four of those components. And that is when you're healing from something or just in general for our own self care. So many people will I find in my work that many people tend to the physical because that is probably the easiest thing. We can eat right, exercise, get enough sleep, take supplements. That's how we nurture our physical body. And that's wonderful. And we need to, it's important. But there's so much more than that. Okay. The mental health component, right? In managing anxiety, if there's any depression, the neuroplasticity of the brain and breaking limited beliefs or changing patterns, right, of behavior. That's all in the mental body. The emotional piece, right, all of the things, the emotions that we store, they stay in our body, right? I love, one of my favorite books is The Body Keeps the Score, because
Yes.
those emotions stay in our tissues, and I speak to this all the time, in our body. So we don't realize it, but they're there, right? So we're carrying this emotional baggage with us throughout life. And unless we're conscious of it and aware of it, we want to release some of that and let it go. And you actually you feel lighter actually when you energetically release some of that emotion that's stored. Going back to what you said, the endure piece, many of us were taught to just just take it in, right? Absorb it, just push it down, push it
Yes.
down, push it down. And at some point, right, we get to a point, and a lot of times it happens midlife, 40s, 50s, there's no more room. You can't stuff any more of those repressed emotions down. And that's where it comes out into the physical. Uh, and then the last piece is spiritual. Again, I don't talk typically religion with clients. I talk more spiritual, whatever it is you believe is your higher power, whether that's God, the universe. To me, it's very important that you nurture that spiritual piece, because I know for myself, I didn't get to where I am right now by just me, and I am very well aware of that. Okay, so it's also connecting spiritually to your higher source. So if you nurture all four of those things and you're conscious about it, you can get to the other side of healing. Now, I help in many of those realms with energy healing. So, massage helps with the physical, also the mental health. Reiki energy healing helps for all four of those components in helping people release stored emotions that they no longer want to carry, helping people find clarity in their lives. And I speak to this all the time about the silver lining. And a lot of times I get it. If you're in these kinds of relationships, you don't feel it or see it while you're there. But I can guarantee that on the other side, you do recognize that the silver lining of recovering or healing from a narcissistic relationship is the rediscovery of yourself. And that
Absolutely.
is a beautiful thing, Noreen. And I
Yes.
have done it personally and I've seen it. I've witnessed it in many, many situations. There is beauty in that. There is power in that to say, you know what? I was broken and not, whatever the situation was. Okay. But I allowed someone to take my power and take my light. And when you reclaim that, you reclaim your power, you reclaim your voice, you reclaim your purpose. There is absolute power in that. And that is what drives me and motivates me to continue doing the things that I do in my work to help people and help people also in finding their power.
I love it. And you have been facilitating a narcissistic abuse recovery support group for over
Yes.
4 years. So
Yes.
I would say that all that you've that word again, all that you've
Yes.
endured
Yes. Sure.
during that
Sure.
time inspired you to create that space. But was there anything else, or was there a specific moment in time where you were like, you know what? I feel there is a need for this, there's a niche for this. I want to create this space because we need to understand more about what narcissistic behavior looks like, and we need to help people through it.
Yes, there absolutely was. For me, I felt, well, I mentioned at the beginning when I did leave this 20-year relationship, narcissistic relationship, I was looking for support. I was looking for help. And I speak to it often that I'm very blessed, very, very grateful for my family and friend network who helped me through when I needed the most help in my life. However, there were many situations where people couldn't understand what I was truly going through. And I speak to this a lot that unless you've lived this kind of relationship, fortunately or unfortunately, because if you've never been in this kind of relationship, that's a good thing, right? But then unfortunately you can't really understand the psychology and the subtle manipulations that are happening. And so I was very frustrated because I felt like I was always trying to explain to people what was going on, and people didn't really get it, right? And I talk about the like getting it. So I was looking for that kind of space. So I squirreled that information away because I was in a world of hurt with me and my family. And I knew I told myself, I was like, at some point when I am in a stronger place and a more healed place, I want to open a support group to help other people in this situation. I'm a big, just in general, support group kind of person. I've done, done that all my life. I have twins, so I was in a twin mom support group.
Oh,
I
wow.
was an expat. I was in an expat support group. I believe in the power and strength of people sitting in the same boat type of thing.
Community.
Community, exactly, exactly. So it took a couple of years. It did. And it was always in the back of my mind. And I knew that when I felt ready, I would know it. And I did. And it took a couple of years of my healing and helping my children heal. And I said, I'm ready. I'm ready. And when I opened this group, I started it in person in Charlotte. I then opened another group in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh,
And then
wow.
at some point, I realized I'm going to go virtual just because I think that expands the reach to people everywhere.
Absolutely.
And today's time, especially after COVID, we know that we can do so much virtually. But my intention was always, it wasn't a place to come and just vent, right? That's not it. It's the group has always the intention, and the pillars has been to have a safe space with community of people like-minded who understand because they're going through something similar in their lives. And it's a space to learn, to grow and to heal. And I have seen such amazing things. The perspective also, some stories, it's kind of thing in life when you think that you're struggling with something and then you hear someone else's story and you think, wow, oh my goodness, like how did this person survive? And that was, 1,000 times more scary. So it's given me such perspective. But I'm truly honored and humbled to hold that space. Lots of people thank me. And I said, you don't need to thank me because this is part of my healing as well.
Exactly.
It's a reciprocal space. And I just feel called because that's the thing, Noreen. I felt, after a couple of years, I felt I could say, okay, I'm healing myself and my children and be happy with that. And I was so thankful and grateful to God that we were in such a better place as we continue to every day. But I felt called higher. I felt called to be able to help more from the personal experience that I've been through.
Wow.
So I could have closed that door and just said, nope, I'm good. Like we're okay and good there. But I believe in answering those calls when you get nudged spiritually.
Absolutely.
And
And it's
that's
so
kind of
funny
how it
that you
happened.
said that. It's so funny that you said that because your story is so similar to my origin story for even creating this platform, is because I
Mm.
want people to know, like I said in the beginning, we share stories to let you know that you're never alone in this journey of life.
Yes.
There are other
Yes.
people out here that are experiencing the same things that you're experiencing, and we need to really start normalizing sharing our stories and sharing what we've been through. And
Yes.
one thing that people always ask me when I am a guest on other people's podcasts is, how do you prepare for what you're going to hear? And I'm like, I don't. I just jump right in. I'm experiencing it for the first time when the guest is sharing their
Yes.
stories, because
Yes.
everything needs to be authentic. You
Yes.
know. So when you open this support group, this community for people, um, what were some of the common themes or struggles you see survivors experiencing when they first come into the group?
That's a great question. Can I just hint on piggyback on what you said, and then I'm going to answer the question,
Okay.
just because I agree with you about the authenticity piece. I find in my own personal world and in my professional and the support group and with clients that when you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you allow yourself to be transparent and share your story, it inspires other people to do so. And I'm a big believer on that. So I love what you're doing in your work because when you give yourself a voice, it empowers other people to share their voice. And I do want to speak on abuse in general and narcissistic abuse. um, Silence is the secret weapon of that, because when you stay silent, well, then it enables the behavior to keep going and to continue on. But when you stand up and you speak and you bring light to that situation, that's where change happens. That's where healing happens. So I just want to just encourage any of the listeners or anyone in general that whatever you're dealing with in your life, whether it's narcissistic abuse or something else, bring the light to it. When you shine light on whatever the situation is, you never know, when you share something of your story, it can help someone else. And I see that all the time in the support group. Someone will share something and then someone says, "Oh my gosh, wow." They don't feel as alone, right? They feel like, "Yeah, I
Exactly.
experienced something similar to that." And
They
so
feel
it
normal.
they feel validated and normal.
Yes.
Exactly. So that happens all the time. And even in my private sessions, I always say, like, I'm an open book. I'll share when it's appropriate. So if someone is talking to me about whatever is going on in their world, it's a confidential space, I'll share something from I've had a lot of life experience, and I'll share if that can help them. And I get that a lot as well. Like, wow, thank you for sharing that with me because that helped me in whatever the case is. So I just wanted to speak to that. To answer your question,
Yes.
though,
Thank you.
of course, you asked what are some of the struggles that people come when they come to the support group, correct?
Right. Yeah. Some of the struggles and the struggles and the common themes that you see they come in with, what they're experiencing when they first come into the group.
Yes. Okay. So in recognizing, and I honor this every time in our meetings, is that not only are we all individuals and we all have individual journeys, but also people coming into this group can be in different situations, whether the narcissist is a romantic partner, a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend. It can also be a parent. I get a lot of that situation where people recognize it's my parent who is a narcissist, or a boss or something like that. So one, the narcissist can be a different person. So right there, that could be a little different. but also recognizing that people come in are at very different stages where oftentimes people come to the support group where they're still in the relationship and they're trying to get information to understand, right? Kind of
Mhm.
that space I was in when I was trying to put the pieces together of what am I dealing with here, right? So you have people that are coming to get information, trying to figure out if they are truly in a narcissistic relationship. And then you have people that come that are fully aware. They're trying to get out. They're trying to disentangle themselves out of this relationship, especially if there's children involved and family, and they're looking for support and help and knowledge. And then you also have people that are long since out of a narcissistic relationship, yet they're still trying to recover and heal their heart and their
Mm.
spirit. So I find people in many different points on their journeys. So I try to, be general, but also speak to each person's scenario. A lot of times when people, this is what I get a lot, when people are trying to figure out whether they're in a narcissistic relationship or not, just hearing other people speak of some of their situations, there's so much validation. I've heard this so many times over the last 4 years. Wow, I thought I was the only one dealing with this. Like, wow, somebody else, like that literally speaks to my life. So there's
Right.
that validation, right? It gives them that encouragement, like, okay, this isn't just my situation.
And they
There's
can put a name to what they've been going through.
Exactly. And we do speak a lot about the narcissistic terms because when you can put a name to, oh, that's love bombing or that's gaslighting or that's like you can understand then what's actually happening. A lot of times when people are in the throes of the aftermath where they've left the relationship and it's just, I mean, you want to talk about the train derailing in your life, like everything's turned upside down and you're just trying to literally survive each day. A lot of times just the comfort of knowing that other people, not only myself but other people in the group, have
Mhm.
made it to the other side. Like it's almost that like comfort of like, you're going to be okay. I know it doesn't seem like it now. It's awful. And, in dealing with parental alienation and custody and all these things, especially when it's a marriage or with a parent, being criticized by family members because you've cut off a parent. People say, how can you do that? That's your mother. That's your father. Well, it's called self-preservation, right? You're trying to preserve and protect your peace. And then, and when you do that, there's a lot of pushback. So
Yes.
it's just, it's I find that in that scenario of leaving the relationship, there's just a lot of comfort in the group, um to just keep going, right, to just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then on the other side of that, of just like, you've been in this relationship, you've been out of it so long and you're still trying to heal your heart. It's just, again, the encouragement and motivation that the abuse didn't happen overnight, so you can't expect the healing to happen overnight. It is a process. Healing in general is a process, and
Very valid point.
we want it to be quick, right? We're humans. We want that instant gratification. Like, I just want to be all good, right? I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. It is a process, and you need a lot of patience and a lot of self-compassion in that process. So I believe that the group just offers that comfort, that motivation to keep going.
I love that. And with that all said, what are some practical steps that someone can take to begin reclaiming their confidence and their sense of self?
Yeah, that's a great one. So I offer a lot of tools, again, specific when people are asking, but there's a lot of general things as well. And a lot of these things, they're general in the sense that they're self-care things, self-care and self-love tools that we should be using all the time, but especially when you are leaving and healing from a narcissistic relationship. It's almost like you need these tools a thousand times on fire, right?
Hmm.
And that is going back to what I said about nurturing your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So whatever that looks like in your life, I could give 1,000 examples, whether that's, massage, body work, energy healing, somatic work. I will speak to that for a second. Somatic body work is really, really important because you are retraining your nervous system. When you've lived in high alert, literally walking on eggshells for years in a narcissistic relationship, your nervous system is completely deregulated. So that is huge in the recovery of just calming the nervous system and regulating it again. So somatic work helps with that. more on the emotional, mental, spiritual. Find the things in your life that bring you peace, that bring you joy, whether that is meditation, yoga, prayer, connecting in nature, earthing. There's so many different things you can do to find your peace and to protect your peace. I speak a lot about this, about grounding ourselves in the fact that whatever happens in life, you're more armed to deal with those things when you are grounded. And how do you ground yourself? Ground yourself in the things that make you happy, that bring you joy, that light you up. And that's why I'm saying I can give a million examples, but they're very individual to you. What maybe grounds me, Noreen, is different from you. Maybe a bubble bath is
Absolutely.
what, makes me feel really, really at peace. And maybe for you, it's meeting with a friend, or going for a coffee with, again, a positive person. There's so many different tools. And I speak to a lot of these things. I have a YouTube channel and I have a lot of short videos that cater to your mind, body, spirit, little tools and tips and things that you can do to foster your self-love, your self-care. Because at the end of the day, when you've left a relationship like this, you are learning to love yourself again, because you've been trained, unfortunately, to doubt yourself, to doubt your own identity, your sense of reality, your strengths, all of the things about you that make you the beautiful person that you are. So it is a journey back to loving yourself again, trusting your intuition. So again, it's a laundry list of things. But overall, it's nurturing your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self.
And I love all of that. I just wanted you to get a little more in depth with that, because there are some people that just say, oh, yeah, you need to heal yourself. And some people just really don't know what that looks like. So that's why
Yes.
I wanted you to really go deeper with that. And I
Yes.
know that there are many survivors that carry their emotional pain for years. What are some
Yes.
of the signs that someone may still be holding on to trauma in their body? Because sometimes we don't know that that's what we're doing. Um, but again, somebody may say something that may trigger them. So, what are some of those signs that people may need to look out for to know if someone is still holding trauma in their body?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I feel like a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, um, it can be stemmed in some of the trauma in the body, people that don't feel safe in their own bodies.
Yeah,
So anxiety is a big one. Uh, Limited beliefs, where they don't believe they have the confidence to do the things that perhaps, like, again, you can get a nudge in life, like maybe I should start my own business, or maybe I should write a book, or maybe I should do this, but then they're stuck because, well, I couldn't possibly do that, and who am I to think I could do that, right? So a lot of times that feeling of being stuck in your life, complacency of like this is all that it's meant, those are signs that there's emotional stuff holding you down. There's trauma. um Oftentimes, let's how do I put this? Oftentimes I see this a lot where someone will come for a massage, because everyone knows what a massage is. We know that it helps us feel better in our bodies, the
right.
manipulation of the muscles, and it also helps, of course, calm the mind and the nervous system. But a lot of times in that space, people will recognize, yeah, like I'm still struggling with this, or I'm still holding on to this. um, I encourage energy healing to anyone, whether it's with me or with anyone else. Reiki is such a powerful tool, because what Reiki does is basically highlight those spots of trauma in our body. Noreen, we have energy centers or chakras in our body. So let me give you an example. The sacral chakra is in our stomach, in our abdomen area, and that one holds a lot of emotional trauma in that space. And most people have energy there that is stuck. And so when they come for a session, it's energy work kind of jostles and shakes things up to the surface, and they'll find clarity in, oh wow, okay, so this is what I'm holding on to. It happens all the time. A memory comes up, an emotion comes up, and they're like, I didn't even know I was still holding on to that. Well, your
Right,
body's telling
exactly.
you, it's still there. It's still
Yeah.
there. Our body communicates with us in such amazing ways. And so if someone comes for a massage or an energy session, a lot of times they'll have that kind of feeling like, oh wow, this is what's keeping me stuck. And then we'll consciously work on that. Okay, so you're struggling with anxiety over, starting a business, or anxiety, whatever it is, then we'll consciously work on those things to clear that energy, to clear that trauma from the body, so that you can get unstuck, if that makes sense. So
It does.
it's the awareness of that. Believe me, we all have emotional baggage and we all have some sense of trauma in our body, some more intense than others. But throughout, it's almost like we're human. We live life, and there are traumas that we deal with. But when they're not dealt with, when they're just pushed down, they're still inside our body. And if we allow them to come to the surface in stillness, that's where healing happens.
Yes, and I love that you really mentioned and really honed in on people feeling stuck in in what they're going through. They don't know if to go left or right or how to get
Yes.
how to get help, what resources are available to them or even what's actually going on with them. So as we close, if someone listening today feels stuck in pain or darkness, what message of hope would you want to leave them with?
Mm, I love that. There's always hope. There's always
There's
hope.
always hope.
Don't give up, no matter what you're dealing with in your world. And I speak to this a lot. We all have different struggles, right? But we're all human. Don't give up. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Reach out for help, people around you, to help you. We're meant to help each other, I believe. And just keep moving in the right direction. If something, I speak a lot to trusting your intuition. If something feels right for you in your process, your recovery, your healing, your world, go with it. Don't ignore those nudges. They're meant to put you on the right path in your direction. So just don't ever give up hope. And I'm happy, Noreen, I know that, we're sitting in different places in the country, but a lot of my work can be done virtual. Massage, obviously you would need to be in person, but Reiki energy healing and intuitive coaching can be done virtually. And I'm always happy to help anyone who is in need, because I believe that no matter what you're struggling with it in life, there's always hope.
I love that. And thank you so much for that. So where can people find you on your social media, in case they want to maybe check out some of your videos, see what you're talking about, maybe,
Sure.
hook up with you for a coaching session?
Absolutely. So my main source where you can find more information about me is my website, and it's www.healinghandsbydeanna.com. And there you find, of course, information about me and all of my services and the group events for the Narcissistic Abuse Support Group. But I also have a YouTube channel that's under Healing Hands by Deanna. And I encourage anyone to go on there because I have lots of short videos that just really help in, again, encouraging mind, body, spirit healing on recovery. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on a lot of those videos and helping people. So those would be the two. I am on Facebook and Instagram as well. Um, and yeah, that would probably be the best way to find me.
Okay, and I will definitely be putting all your contact information into the show notes. I think this was such a really good conversation because, like I said, a lot of people don't know what the term narcissist means. Sometimes they use it very loosely.
Yes.
I I have to admit I've been called a narcissist, but I'm like, I care too much about people's feelings to really be one because
Yes.
I'm the kind of person that I want to hear you out. I want to understand your experience of me so that I
Yes.
can self-correct. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think I fit the definition of a
Mm-mm.
narcissist.
No.
I mean, listen, we all get a little petty sometimes, right? Depending on what's happening, we could get a little
Sure.
petty and, not everyone behaves perfectly and no one's
Of
perfect. We're all
course.
human. We're just all out here trying to survive in this world.
Of
And some
course.
days we don't show up as our best selves, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are displaying narcissistic behavior. So I was so happy that you were able to just give a deep dive on exactly what that means so that not only people that are listening or watching would know the signs, but also some people that are listening and watching can see those signs within themselves and maybe
Yes.
try to seek help.
Yes. But I can
Know
I
that
speak.
that's an avenue for that.
That is very true. And just really quick, speaking to that though, because I see this and witness this all the time and have been a recipient of it. Oftentimes, when there's a narcissist, a true narcissist in your life, they project onto you and call you the narcissist when it's really them that is the person. But here's the situation: if you've been in that relationship long enough, you start to question yourself and you start to think, "Am I the narcissist? Is it me?" Well, I do display some of those behaviors. Well, why do you display some of those behaviors? Because you've been around them. and you've adopted
Yes.
some of them from that person. So I do want to, that is really a really important thing to end on, is that if you are questioning whether you yourself are a narcissist, really take a look around you and the relationships around you, because oftentimes it's projected onto you and it's actually not you.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Miss Deanna, for sharing your story
Yes.
today. And to the listeners who were able to tune in with us, whether you're just listening or whether you're just looking on, thank you so much for tuning in. And if anything that you heard today resonated with you, know that you are not alone in this journey, because we are all out here just trying to live our life and show up as our best selves. So,
Absolutely.
thank you again, Miss Deanna. We will
Thank
definitely probably have to have a part two, because maybe we need to go into gaslighting.
Yeah. Oh, we could dive deeper into any of those narcissistic traits for sure. But Noreen, thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience, to speak. I believe that anyone out there who is listening, if they took one thing with them that helped, then that's a success. And yes, just keep doing the work, keep showing up. Try. That's my goal every day, to show up a better version than myself than I was yesterday. Keep shining your light, and have hope.
Well said. Well, for all that's listening, until next time, remember, leaving a painful situation may feel like the end of your story, but sometimes it is actually the beginning of your healing, your strength, and the life you truly deserve. So, with that
Amen to
said,
that.
we will talk soon. Peace and
Thank you.
blessings.
Bye bye. Ooh, that was awesome.